shout out to everybody out there in DGen Nation fam for rocking with us for the whole season, or 4 weeks of the season already. We got the Week 5 DFS top low owned plays, also known as the TFA Contrarian, that I'm bringing to you. 10 plays in 10 minutes that I feel like are going to be low owned for the main slate. Let's not waste any time. Let's get to it. But first, make sure you guys are following the Fantasy Authority YouTube channel to get all of this content. Like the video, comment. I digress. Let's get into these plays. First, I'm going to talk about Lamar Jackson. All right. He comes in at $7,900 on DraftKings, $8,900 on FanDuel, and he's going to be great in this matchup against Cincinnati. It's a divisional matchup, but he's crushed this matchup in the past with his legs. And that's kind of what we like from our quarterbacks in DFS from that perspective when they're getting opportunities on the ground. And you look at the way to attack Cincinnati is on the run, so to speak, but you don't have to worry about that three-headed backfield that they got with Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. Who's going to be the guy? It's going to be Lamar. He's smashed in this spot before, 2 100-yard rushing games in his career against them. He had another 60-yard rushing game against them, I believe, last year too. And they've allowed Carson Wentz and Garner Minshew to put up 20 fantasy points in this matchup. Now, the best thing that I like about Lamar, too, is that he's been on the injury report all week, had the knee injury, then he has the stomach ache, is what was being reported, but all signs pointed to him playing, and he had a full practice on Friday. We love that. Get Lamar into your lineups. You don't got to stack him with anybody. Love him as a pivot off of guys like Patrick Mahomes and then Dak Prescott as well on FanDuel. Let's get into running backs here. And I got some fun running backs to talk about. Two guys that I'm have a keen interest in. First one being Kareem Hunt. He's $6,500 on DraftKings, $7,000 on FanDuel. We know what Kevin Stefanski wants to do, even with the Nick Chubb injury, and especially with the Nick Chubb injury. He wants to run the ball. We saw D'Ernest Johnson come in, kind of take on what Kareem Hunt's role was, right, and getting some run there when Chubb goes down. Then we get Kareem Hunt into the Nick Chubb role, and that's just been a bountiful role for fantasy points since Kareem Hunt's been there. And we saw with KC, this guy was a top 5 back. He's not a backup guy getting into a starter role. He's a starter role that's finally getting into starter production. Now, he's dealing with a groin injury, so that makes me a little bit off of him from cash purposes, but in GPPs, when he's priced around guys like Mike Davis, who I also love this week, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I love this week, and James Conner's catching some steam, you got to like him, right, in this matchup against the Colts. Darius Leonard, also the linebacker for the Colts, is expected to miss. I believe I saw that he was going to be out, so that's great. Browns O-line, PFF has them highly graded. And you're looking at the Colts numbers against running backs, and we talked about this on the DGen Nation pod this week. While the numbers have been good, you're looking at Cook go for 63-1. James Robinson had 62 yards in week 1, breakout. Gore got 50 with the Jets, and Kalen Ballage in that same game got catching work, 5 for 44. So if Kareem Hunt's asked to be on the field in bunches, he should be able to pay off on that price tag, and you're loving that his ownership is going to be low. So again, one of my favorite plays this week. And then another guy that I talked about on the podcast as well was Antonio Gibson. He's $5,000 on DK, $5,800 on FanDuel. The Rams have the 28th DVOA run defense right now. So we definitely love that from a matchup spot. And then you're looking at this situation where Scott Turner and company, they went out, the offense coordinator there, they went out, drafted this guy. He was from Carolina. Christian McCaffrey had the huge year, right? And so they bring in this guy, Antonio Gibson, to be the Washington CMC. And Dwayne Haskins has just been so bad. They put Kyle Allen at the fold now. Alex Smith is the backup, and Kyle Allen was the quarterback when Christian McCaffrey went dumb in fantasy last year with 148 targets, 120 catches. So I could see in this game, if they're able to somewhat keep it competitive, they'll lean on him. If they're down, I think they're going to lean on him. He just saw a season high in 17 touches last week. I think the Rams are favored like by a touchdown or just over a touchdown, but they just faced the Giants and they only scored 17 points. So if Kyle Allen can get the act together and, give Antonio Gibson some work on the ground here, I think we can really be in for really having him pay off that $5,000 price tag. I think he's a really smart play in DFS this week if you need some solid relief at running back. Let's get into wide receivers. I got a ton of guys at wide receivers that I want to touch on, and they really come into the quarterbacks that I want to play. So the first guy, I thought about writing up his quarterback too, or talking about the quarterback, but there's so many other quarterbacks that are in good spots that I'm just going to talk about him. So that's Juju Smith-Schuster. Now his price is kind of middling. I believe 6,700 on DraftKings, 7,300 on FanDuel, and this really just comes down to the other side here for me, and that is Darius Slay is going to shadow Deontay Johnson. Now, people want to say Deontay Johnson has taken over Juju Smith in this role, and you know, we'll see that come to fruition because Darius Slay has been incredible this season so far in holding wide receiver production to the wide receiver one. The nickel corner there, the slot corner there, Roby Coleman, he's been able to be attacked. That's where Juju Smith is going to be. And home splits for Ben, we know production should come, or we assume production will come from the passing game in this game. I love getting Juju Smith-Schuster off a pivot to guys who are in that Dallas game, or, you know, people who want to pay for Calvin Ridley or other things like that. And Juju is just going to get overlooked in this matchup that has been plentiful for slot receivers in the past. So Juju Smith-Schuster, I think, going overlooked this week. Another guy who could possibly go overlooked is Marquise Brown. If I'm going to talk about Lamar, I got to talk about a pass catcher to go along with him. 6,300 on DraftKings, 61. I had to double take because I wrote it down. 6,100 on FanDuel is an absolute steal. The guy on Cincinnati who he's going against, Darius Phillips, he's been picked on already for 17 targets, given up 180 yards through 4 games. And it's going to come with Marquise Brown. He's seeing 6 targets, I think at least 6 targets in every game, has an 8-target game. And the price is just way too cheap. Like, get in on this guy now because they're going to price him up as soon as he has a big game. And the big game could come because he's seeing 45% of the team's air yards. That's crazy. Good for second in the league. He's 7th in total air yards. Got a top 10 team target share. So you love that. No red zone targets. Mark Andrews is the red zone guy. We know that. Lamar Jackson, always a threat to score from the red zone, and they could run the ball too. But if he scores from outside of the red zone, I think that could really pay off his price tag there. And not enough people are talking about him. The other guy here is CeeDee Lamb. I think he's going to catch some steam here. Another guy who has a favorable matchup by playing in the slot, Darnay Holmes, I believe, is the slot corner there from the Giants, and he's just been letting up a ton of production here. CeeDee Lamb has been on the field. We've talked about it ad nauseum. The Cowboys right now are just producing fantasy goodness as they're, you know, playing at a high pass play rate. So many plays are just happening in this game that's making everybody viable. The receivers, Dalton Schultz, Zeke. So if you're looking for a pivot, Mari should be popular. Zeke's going to be popular. Dak's going to be popular. And you want to take just a sole island guy from this game. I love CeeDee Lamb at his price, 5,900 on FanDuel. You got to love that. And he's got red zone target share with Dak, tied for 5th with Dalton Schultz, seeing 5 on the team, and people are liking Gallup this week, but he's seen 0 red zone targets. So definitely like CeeDee Lamb. Mecole Hardman is another guy. This is more so a DraftKings play for me because really that touchdown upside you need. But love that he overtook Demarcus Robinson last week in snap share just by a little bit, but still it's something that we want to point out. Back-to-back games with 4 catches, 60 yards. Definitely love that. He's 4,400 on FanDuel. So I think you can get some leverage on the field by getting a guy tied to Pat Mahomes, who's looking to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate. And so while people are going to pay up for Tyreek Hill, going to play up for Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill's been held in this matchup before. He's still Tyreek Hill, and he's had decent games, but not explosive games that would pay off that price tag. So Pat Mahomes is throwing the ball all over the field. Hell, running backs are getting touchdowns. Offensive linemen are getting touchdowns. It's crazy. So if Mecole Hardman's able to take one to the house, you're going to feel good about that. And he had his breakout game last year against the Vegas Raiders as well, went 4 for 80. Love that. 2 more guys that I want to touch on here is Randall Cobb. So Randall Cobb is more so a DraftKings play for me as well too. He comes in at about 4,600 on DraftKings, and with Brandon Cooks being there at 4,100, I think people will want to play Will Fuller. With Deshaun Watson being free. Deshaun Watson is my favorite quarterback. Check out my article this week for building blocks, and he's going to be a guy that I'm building around. So that's where Randall Cobb comes in. And if you don't want to play Cooks, who just got a goose egg last week, even though he was like 90% of the time he's on the field, you can go to Randall Cobb here. He's got a low A.C and underneath work. I think if Jordan Akins is out, the tight end who's dealing with a concussion, and I don't think he's been ruled in yet, I really think that you could see Cobb kind of taking on that role from an underneath route. He's got 113 yak yards on the year, yards after catch. So you love that, and he's going to be a guy that I want to get exposure to on my Deshaun teams, along with Will Fuller, of course. But I think he's going to be overlooked, and I do like getting exposure to him. And then Eric Ebron, another DraftKings pretty much solely play for me, but he's coming in at 4,000 on DraftKings. And you like that what he did in week 3. Now that they weren't playing in week 4 because of COVID, it canceled the game. And so I think people forgot about Eric Ebron and what he was able to do. And that production did come with Deontay Johnson missing. So that does need to be said, but still 7 targets. There were beat reporters talking about the rapport that Eric Ebron and Ben Roethlisberger were developing kind of going into week 3, and they were hoping to carry that on into week 4. So hopefully that carries on here into week 5. And you're looking at the Eagles, who just got torched on primetime by George Kittle. I'm not comparing Eric Ebron to George Kittle by any means, but still a favorable position. Tyler Higbee, he pretty much has been non-existent except for the game that he had against the Eagles, 3 touchdowns. And then Logan Thomas also had a breakout against this team. And then speaking of Logan Thomas, who's 3,600 on DraftKings, he gets some exposure to this guy. I think 3,500 actually. And if Kyle Allen gets into any type of trouble, I think we'll see him lean on Logan Thomas. The tight ends and running backs were the 2 most targeted positions by Kyle Allen in games where he needed to come from behind. And that's where we saw like Ian Thomas kind of come into the fold and a guy that people, were talking about in dynasty purposes and things like that, sneakily for redraft. And in Carolina. So I think with Kyle Allen, he comes into the fold here, and going against this team, against the Rams, you're hoping that he can get some underneath work there. And it's got to be, everybody's been playing him with Dwayne Haskins, so why not play him now that Kyle Allen's there? I think people are way off of him. And if this guy gets you a touchdown on, we talk about tight end being real volatile. There are some high guys that you could pay up for and feel more comfortable with. But in the low end range, if you need to stack up guys at other positions, don't be scared to play Logan Thomas in this game. And it could really, pay off there when he wasn't being able to catch the ball because Dwayne Haskins wasn't giving him catchable targets. A little over 10 minutes there for me, but that's going to be my top 10 plays here, my top 10 low end plays. TFA, Contrary 10. Appreciate everybody who's been checking out these videos all season long. Appreciate all the love that you guys have been giving to the Fantasy Authority. Check everything out at thefantasyauthority.com. Check out everything that we got going on our YouTube channel. Subscribe, like the content. We appreciate all that. I'm going to be back next week for week 6 to give you my top 10 low-owned plays for that week. Until then, I hope to catch you guys on the leaderboards. Peace.